We are back with another episode of the Gold Standard here on Fox 19 Now with Charlie Goldsmith. I'm Joe Danneman. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Did you stay up to watch the ball drop?
I did. No, I didn't actually watch the ball drop, but I was up for the concept of
Nice.
the ball dropping.
So only one of my children stayed up with me to watch the ball drop at midnight. So Andrew, well done. Our youngest.
Oh, wow.
They still get excited for moments like that, so it was kind of fun. Okay, starting a new year, but continuing our conversations on the Reds and the Bengals here on this podcast. And let's start with the Bengals. One game left in the 2025 season. It's week 18. It's home against the Cleveland Browns. Zach Taylor says that Joe Burrow is going to play. What do you think it looks like on Sunday against the Browns? I kind of feel like this will look like a preseason game where you get Joe some work, then you get him out maybe at halftime and let the backups play the second half. What say you?
We've had this conversation consistently since Burrow got hurt initially about whether he should play, how much he should play. And consistently I've been like, play Burrow. I'm done. I've seen what I've needed to see. The offense has done everything it can to generate momentum and identity and rhythm entering the offseason. And you know what? You want to sit Burrow because you're scared of Myles Garrett. More power to you. Everyone should be scared of Myles Garrett. So for those reasons, as they might say, I'm out. But it sounds like Burrow's at least going to start. I don't know what that leash is going to end up looking like, but I don't really even see a ton of value in what you would get out of playing your first team offense significant snaps in this game.
You used two words in there I want to follow up on. You used words momentum and identity. Okay, let's start with momentum. Do you believe that games and performances at the end of this season can help this team going forward into the offseason to be better in 2026?
Let's look at some individual performances.
Okay.
Like the leap that Mims has made, combined with how playing next to Dalton Risner and that chemistry that was built, which, we can talk about this. We'll talk about this throughout the offseason, which makes Risner a guy the Bengals should bring back. But also how that's helped Amarius, and each of them, their game has been elevated, and that represents this continuity across the line. That is a very, very tangible, specific, real example that you could point to and prove, what the Bengals have done recently it matters.
Yeah.
It's tangible. Just look at those guys and how they've helped each other and how the line has helped each other. I could give you 10 examples, but that's a very specific one right there about how what the offense has established in December truly has mattered.
I want to bookmark Dalton Risner because you're right. We have a lot of off-season conversation to have here the next few months. We can save Dalton Risner for another day. The other word you used was identity. It's interesting that Zach Taylor said this week that they've helped refine their identity here at the end of the season. Is that interesting to you that a team that's had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins now for several years feels like it's finding its identity again here at the end of the season, or is there something real to that?
My read on that is more they did some Flacco-specific things, so they leaned maybe more Burrow's going to play plenty under center, but some specific under center things they did with Flacco, some different run game stuff because you needed to be more explosive in the run game. They maybe leaned more into things they don't specifically major in, but then when Burrow comes back, you're just playing the hits. So the ability to play the hits in a way that they weren't with Flacco, you get those reps, you get that building. And it's funny, too, the question I've been asking around about is what are the offensive coaches going to do in the offseason? Is there anything for this unit to even work on? And there are a few specific very in the weeds things that I think are interesting, but generally from what the general fan would care about, no. With what they're at, this offense is set, the scheme is set. There's going to be nothing macro that this staff really feels like it needs to work on.
You use the phrase explosive in the run game. It feels like Chase Brown has really taken a step forward this year in rounding out his game. He has a chance on Sunday with a massive game to have 1,000 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving. I don't think that'll happen, but it almost feels like he's become a bit of a Christian McCaffrey light here in Cincinnati, where he can help you in the run game and the pass game. They've really weaponized the checkdowns. You've seen him in the slot a lot. That's my big setup to open the conversation about Chase Brown and his future here in Cincinnati. I don't think there's anybody on the beat who bangs the drum more for Chase Brown than you do. You like Chase Brown a lot, and I see why. He's explosive, he's durable, he's about the right stuff. Should Chase Brown get a second contract in Cincinnati after the Bengals were just burned by it by giving Joe Mixon a second contract a few seasons ago.
Now, let's start with Mixon for a second. I would argue the Mixon contract was a success through 2022. And even in 2023, I think Mixon had a 1,000-yard season. Like, he was fine. He wasn't the problem with the offense in 2023. I'd argue their problem was they didn't have a backup for Joe Mixon. But through 2022, I would take that from Mixon 10 times out of 10, what you got from him. And I think it was actually a very underrated, not indispensable, but essential cog in the offense in 2022, especially Chase Brown. It's not the analytical thing to do to pay a running back.
Of course.
You get these done early. You fit these in. You structure these deals together with Dax Hill and DJ Turner, similarly to how you did with Jamar and T. You go in early. That gives you more flexibility and creativity. And you know what? As much as I generally am not a proponent of paying running backs, for a Bengals team that had Zach Taylor in Week 6 being like, I need leaders, like that was his message in a press conference, I just can't let a guy like Chase walk out the door because Burrow's a superstar, Jamar's a superstar, T's a superstar. Chase Brown is the guy that, every man 5th-round pick comes in and looks at and says, that's the path. I can be that. I can aspire to do that. Oh, Chase, what did you do here? What did you do there? Kind of in a way that Sam Hubbard did. He gives you a thing to emulate for everyone in that building. And I think for a team that needs to have the culture take the next step with this young core, I just can't let a guy like Chase Brown walk out the door.
It's so funny because you start talking about big threes, and typically big threes is a basketball term. You think about the big three that exploded with the Boston Celtics with Garnett, Allen, and Pierce. Well, there was a fourth. It was Rondo, right? That made it kind of a big four. The LA Lakers had Andrew Bynum, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, but Lamar Odom was the fourth. And you think about the Golden State Warriors with their 4 guys. My point being that sometimes a big three isn't enough, even just for an offense, that you have to have a 4th guy to go with that. And I think Chase Brown has earned the right to be the guy that's considered maybe the 4th guy to go with those guys. It's against all analytics now in the NFL, right? You just don't pay a running back a second contract. They hit too much, they take too many carries, they can't keep it going for another few years, but it feels like there are some guys who do break the mold, right? That should be paid. And you can look all across the league, there are guys like that, the Saquon Barkleys, the Bijan Robinsons, guys who deserve second contracts. But even though it happened here in Cincinnati with Joe Mixon, and everybody said, okay, never do it again, draft the guy, play him as 4 years, then redraft another guy because it's a plug-and-play position. You believe that Chase Brown should be an exception because of what he brings to this offense.
I do, because if you're losing Chase Brown, and I said this with T, with that money, you're not getting a player better than that. And just a general thing I do believe in is just give me the most talent. I don't even care what position they play. Also, in theory, you don't pay, quote-unquote, Chase Brown to help the defense, to invest in the defense. I'd argue that Chase Brown helps the defense a lot.
Sure.
I go back to 2023 when the defense first started to slip. That was when Burrow had the calf injury. It was kind of the first month of that season. And the thing I heard the most during that time was, our run game's not very good. We're not sustaining drives. We're putting the defense in really, really difficult spots with time of possession, with game scripts, with what the score is and how that gives offenses more freedom to be creative and do different things. Like, a running back really helps your defense. And that's something that I put a bit of value in too. So I'm in the pay Chase Brown camp, but pay Chase Brown in the terms of fit it in with Dax Hill and DJ Turner, make it all work together collectively, and as Burrow would say, do something different to get these deals done early.
Do something different, do something creative. Do you think that's what Joe was part of what he was referencing, is not waiting like they did with some of their other contracts that came out to burn them, either with someone leaving or it ended up costing them more money than it would have been if they got it done early, because both Dax Hill and DJ Turner still have a year left on their contract, but if they address those this offseason, they get it done. They probably get it done at a price point that's going to be more susceptible for them to be happy with the deal. Do you think that's part of what Joe's referencing, is getting creative and trying to get these deals done earlier instead of waiting like they did with
everybody?
Bates, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, everybody. Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah. Burrow also talked yesterday about being the conduit between like the front office and ownership and the locker room and representing how guys feel in the locker room. And I don't know specifically what Burrow means, but I can tell you, talking to guys about the locker room dynamics in general, like how tough it was when, is Trey Hendrickson going to show up today for training camp? Is Jamar Chase going to practice today? Yeah. Jesse Bates, remember, didn't show up until August. Like, my goal for the Bengals in 2026 is for everyone to be, I want everyone to be at OTAs. The Bengals, the last time that happened? 2021, they made the Super Bowl. I want everyone to be at OTAs because there's no contract drama. There's no hassle that's going on that has people in the locker room looking around. Like, I don't know what Burrow meant by do something different, but I can tell you when he talks about voicing the opinions of the locker room, man, it is tough when there's a distraction like that going on. And I would do whatever I could to make sure there's not a distraction like that this spring.
I hope you're reading Charlie's chalkboard on fox19now.com. 3 articles that I want to talk about here, 3 talking points. The first one being you spoke to Joe Flacco. What an interesting year it's been for Joe Flacco when it finishes in Week 18. I'm sure we'll see him on the field against the Cleveland Browns. There might be a chance that Myles Garrett breaks the record with a sack of his former teammate from this season, which is just a wild sentence to say, but we'll see how it plays out on Sunday. What was your biggest takeaway from your conversation with Bengals quarterback Joe Flacco?
I guess the news was him saying that the priority is a shot to start, or at least to be in a competition, and how he does this to play. But also if the Bengals, I said this to Joe, hopefully Burrow never gets hurt between now and the end of time. But he said if the Bengals called in November and he's out there, yes, he'd be interested in coming back. I thought the thing he had the most to say about was Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher and the job that they did and do constructing an offense that clearly for him was digestible. He talked a lot about their in-game play calling. He talked a lot about how teams and defenses have to shift because Jamar opens things up for T, who opens things up for Chase Brown, who opens things up for the tight ends. He was very impressed as a whole. He's been on a million teams. Here he was very impressed kind of about with the offensive ecosystem and how it all works together.
Check out the quotes from Joe Flacco on Zach Taylor and the coaching staff. I think they're a bit eye-opening from what he said in your article with him. One quick follow-up before point number 2 is the Bengals' backup quarterback for 2026 on the roster.
I mentioned there were a couple minutes ago, there are things that are like very in the weeds, off-season things. I think backup quarterback's going to be one of them. I don't know how you can go with Jake Browning as your unquestioned starter. He's also as your unquestioned backup. He's also a restricted free agent, so we'll have a decision to make there about kind of if he's earned that salary, which is kind of an awkward thing to say. But they're, from what I would expect, they're going to be evaluating that veteran class. You're obviously not going to get anyone nearly as accomplished as Joe Flacco, but go find a Flacco-type pocket passer, decision maker, anticipation, accuracy over mobility, playmaking, turnover prone. That's what they're going to be looking at backup quarterback.
Article number 2 and topic number 2 is Amarius Mims. He wrote about the Bengals right tackle, and it's funny, as a group, the Fox 19 Sports Department before the season did our bold predictions for 2025, and I went last, so 2 of my bold predictions were already taken. So I needed to fall back on my 4th option, which was I think Amarius Mims could have a Pro Bowl season. He's not going to get there. He didn't get there this year. But it feels like Amarius Mims is starting to tap into all of the traits and the freaky ability that he has with that size. He's tracking towards becoming a Pro Bowler, correct?
He's at a Pro Bowl level right now.
So I was right.
I think here's the easiest way to say this. Like, I could tell you all the quotes and all what they're saying. Just look at the actions. Actions speak louder than words. Yeah. They're not helping Amarius Mims. When you look at what they do from double teams and chip help, and you have P. Ryan stepping up and giving you a shoulder, he'll do that on the left side. They're not doing that on the right side. Amarius Mims is just winning one-on-one. In the same way that, how DJ Turner, he's going to win. He's going to win that matchup. Your one-on-one is going to be an X in the Bengals' favor in that X's and O's chess match. Amarius is just going to win. He's a winner, and that's what Pro Bowl caliber players do.
I was a year ahead. See, you're never wrong, you're just early.
That's what I always say.
That's what I was with Amarius Mims. Okay, article number 3, to be written A conversation you just had today as of this taping was with Bengals defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery. What was your biggest takeaway from your conversation with him now that he's had a full year with this roster here in Cincinnati?
So first, let me say this, and this isn't a quote from Jerry. This isn't anything he was saying. I think this offseason is going to be the offseason of the defensive line, almost to the level that 2022 was the offseason of the offensive line for the Bengals. Now, I still think they'll get a veteran linebacker and a veteran safety, but I think you're looking at multiple investments at defensive end and defensive tackle through the draft and in free agency, and premium investments at that. Now, what they have now, they view Myles Murphy as a starter. Shamar Stewart has to have an offseason, Jerry Montgomery said, from a strength and conditioning perspective and from a homework perspective, to where he can't have lost any ground when he shows back up for training camp, or else he's going to be competing for snaps. And then quietly, after Myles and Shamar, you have Sed Johnson, and then you don't have another defensive end on the roster. I guess you got Isaiah Foskey, and they might have some practice squad guys come back, but you know what I mean there. Defensive tackle, they have more options, but Jerry Montgomery, his quotes were saying that he didn't necessarily, in an ideal world, see the opportunity to use B.J. Hill and Chris Jenkins as pass rushers. And neither of them developed as pass rushers to the level where they probably need to be. So that, to me, is another example that the Bengals could highlight a pass rushing defensive tackle as a major need.
Do you feel like he's trying to light a fire under Shamar?
He said... He kind of said, like, I can't want it for you. Like, you've got to go do it. Is he trying to light a fire under Shamar? Knowing Jerry a bit, I mean, he's only been around a year.
Sure.
I don't think he's the kind of coach who, like, would want to do that through the media. I bet he's had these conversations very directly with Shamar Stewart, trying to light a fire under him. And so, you know, maybe when Shamar reads Charlie's chalkboard, these won't be the first time he's hearing these comments.
Well, welcome, Shamar. We're glad you're here. We'll get back to the Bengals in the Gold Rush a little bit later. I want to hit on a couple of Reds points here because the Reds have started to make some moves here in the offseason. It's still only early January. They don't go to spring training for another 2 months. Do you feel like, with what the Reds have done, that they have a better team now than they did at the end of the 2025 season?
I can't say that because the guys who I believe hit third and fourth in game one, not game two because they changed the lineup, against the Dodgers, Austin Hayes, Miguel Andujar, they're free agents. And I know those weren't, silver sluggers, but when the guys who were third and fourth in your lineup in game one of the playoffs are gone and you haven't replaced them with hitters who are as impactful in specific roles as those two guys are. Now they've gotten J.J. Bleday and Dane Myers, who are interesting both in their own rights and add to your depth overall. But you can't say they're better when the biggest need we've talked about is their lineup has gotten worse, and you've only added one reliever as well in terms of how you've added to the mix while losing Nick Martinez and a few other guys from your bullpen. So you can't say the roster is better from a names perspective now. It's another quiet Reds offseason. This is why what they'll always say is our only shots to draft and develop, because they're just not going to be the team making the most aggressive moves. So their path to be better is Steer, McLean, Marte, guys like Ellie, of course. They've just got to go do the thing and be the stars themselves. Can those guys do it? I think many of them can. But they're banking on that more than 99% of other teams in baseball would.
They need their young players to elevate their game to a next level, to elevate this team to a higher level in 2026. The Hunter Greene article that came out, it's been a couple of weeks now since Bob Nightingale wrote that article with Hunter Greene. I thought it was very interesting, everything he said about Cincinnati, and there was a perceived, maybe by some fans, a rift between Hunter and either the organization or the clubhouse. It feels like Hunter tried to squash all of that and wants to be that guy here in Cincinnati. Was that enlightening to you at all, some of the stuff Hunter said, or was that just Hunter trying to say the right things in an article? What's your takeaway from what Hunter said in a really important article, I think, for him and the Cincinnati Reds?
I'm really glad you asked that. So, I mentioned I don't know Jerry Montgomery very well. I've known him for a year. I've known Hunter since he was 20. I've talked to Hunter a lot over the years. I've never seen him have an interview like that. I think Hunter's got a bit of an edge to him right now. I think Hunter might be attacking and approaching this as kind of a prove-it year, where he's kind of, when has Hunter Greene ever had something to prove? And he has never he's always so polished and and mature. And when he was 20 years old, it was like talking to a 10-year veteran.
That's right.
The passion that I felt from Hunter in that interview was a completely different perspective that I had ever seen him share publicly at any point of his baseball career. Now, the flip side of that is, from the Reds side, I did feel frustration. Not about the specifics of the timeline and when he returned or how he was approaching his rehab, but just how it was all going. Just the feel was frustration coming from certain places within the Reds organization. Hunter has to be better. Hunter has to be healthier. Hunter has to be better set up for a complete healthy season where he reaches his potential. And the only way that both sides will be satisfied is if he goes and does that. And if this is going to be a prove it, let's go do this thing type season or revenge tour from Hunter Greene, man, I'm excited to watch that.
I like that. The Hunter Greene revenge tour in 2026, a guy that's certainly at the top of his game, should get Cy Young votes if he puts together a full season like we know he can. Okay, let's jump now to the Gold Rush. For the Gold Rush, this will be rapid fire questions to Charlie. I'm going to name specific players, maybe positions on the Bengals defense. I want you to tell me if they should return or should they be replaced. And we're going to start with the guy that everybody talks about when it comes time to changing the Bengals defense. Bengals starting safety Geno Stone. Should he return or should he be replaced?
This is my hottest take.
Yes.
Geno Stone safety 3 for 2026.
Okay, that's fine.
Bring him back. Here's what I'm calling this. Remember Trent Brown?
Yeah.
They brought him in last year. He kind of kept the seat warm for Amarius Mims, but Amarius, if he hadn't gotten hurt in camp, would have just been ready right away. But then Trent Brown got hurt in week 3 or week 4, right when Amarius was about to take over anyway. That's what that safety 3 type role. That's what Geno Stone was on a Ravens defense that I was just talking to someone about this. During the Zach Taylor era, I don't know that I've ever seen a defense as good as where Baltimore was at in 2022 and 2023. If you have Geno in the role he was in that defense, backup, core special teamer. Oh, by the way, there are some third down packages where because of his zone awareness, you do trust him to kind of read the quarterback's eyes down the field on third down, putting him in positions where he's not going to have to make the tackle or make a contested catch opportunity. There is a place for that. And I like the person. I like the makeup. I like kind of what he can do for elevating the football IQ of the room. I love having Geno back in that role. And then, of course, it's a non-starter to have him as your starting free safety anymore.
Demetrius Knight Jr., rookie linebacker this year, drafted with high draft capital, up and down rookie year. Is he back as a starter next year, or should he be replaced?
I assume you're about to ask about Barrett Carter as well.
So let's just lump them together.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's my plan. Sign a sign a $7 to $12 million range free agent to be your starting veteran linebacker who's the glue of the defense. To use another metaphor to a former Bengal, give me the Alex Kappa of linebackers.
Okay.
Just a pro, a vet. You put him in there. I don't feel comfortable or confident rolling with that duo as your unquestioned starting linebacker duo in 2026. There's just too much they haven't seen. There's just too much they haven't experienced yet. There's a reason why you look at the linebacker production across the league and you never see two guys that young together. They call it like a caddy. You have a caddy, an old guy next to him who steers the ship. The Bengals need that butt. And I really mean this. I'm not giving up on either of them.
Yeah.
Here's how I build that room. I want Barrett and Demetrius in specific roles, let's call it platoon,
Okay.
where they can show their strengths. You have Demetrius off the ball on early downs and maybe third and short situations because I think he's underrated kind of as an instinctual guy against the pass as well. You have Barrett as a third down linebacker. You have Barrett as a blitzer who's part of some very specific third down packages where he can show his speed chasing down the quarterback. And then you add a fourth guy, let me call him the Cam Sample of linebackers, who can set the edge, who can do the dirty work, and who's going to tackle his face off in 2026. So between those four guys, you have your Alex Kappa type. He's your starting middle linebacker. He calls the defense. You have Demetrius and Barrett in roles. You have a Cam Sample glue piece, but also that still leaves a runway for either one, just one, of Demetrius or Barrett, whoever pops, to grow into a full-time starting role.
Okay, so I'm going to name some names. I just want one-word answer, yes or no. Jordan Battle, should he return as a starter?
Yes.
Miles Murphy, should he return as a starter? Are you comfortable with Shamar Stewart being a starter next year?
I think in an ideal world, he's like defensive end 4, which now Miles Murphy started this season as defensive end 4, so that still gives you enough opportunity to grow, but it's a big offseason for him.
Dax Hill, outside corner.
Outside.
Yes, that's his best position.
Yes.
No doubt, lock him in. DJ, Dax is your 2 outside guys.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
And last one, and I'm going to lump them all in together. Is there a single defensive tackle that you would bring back next year as a starter on day one?
That's tough, man.
I mean, TJ Slaton's
I think TJ
contracted
Slaton will
to be
kind
that.
of be back in his role, but I think you kind of also need to get better there. I think TJ will be back. I think BJ Hill's going to end up being a cap casualty candidate, not a cap casualty, but it needs to be a conversation because he's one of the like 20 highest paid defensive tackles in the league, and he gives you he needs to be giving you 75% more pass rush value. That's not a real number, but that's how I feel. McKinley Jackson has to earn snaps next season. That's your room. Chris Jenkins, I guess, he's more of a snap soaker, a versatile piece to me than a starter.
That's your room. Put that on the clip as the highlight to send out on socials. Okay, we'll finish with the Gold Nugget. This is when we allow Charlie to pick one of the best interviews, one of the best articles he's written throughout the week, and dive into the notebook here. So what do you have for us on the Gold Nugget this week?
So we all remember, we'll never forget, Cody Ford's unbelievable catch on Sunday in the Bengals win over the Cardinals. And afterwards, Zach Taylor was asked, did he get the ball because it was his birthday? And Zach said, not really a wishing people a happy birthday guy. I don't really keep track of that. Yes. So I remembered in that moment, I had that exact same conversation with Zach like a few years ago, like several years ago. And I remember being so inspired and it felt so freeing, that idea and that concept, that now outside of immediate family, I stopped being a happy birthday text guy. That is a way that I guess Zach Taylor has influenced me. And I was reminded of that on Cody Ford's big day.
No, I think there have to be some rules, and we can workshop it here quickly, that immediate family must always get a text, right? Whether it's your own kids, it's your spouse, it's your parents, it's your brothers and sisters, that is a must, right? That they have to get the text. Outside of that, I have some cousins who I would still lump into family. They're cousins and they're close friends that if I remember, I send them a text, but it should not be expected. But if somebody's going to throw a party for their birthday,
now, that's great,
and invite us,
yes.
Shoot, are you kidding? I'm always up for a party.
Can I tell a story?
Yes.
I once saved a surprise birthday party because everyone forgot to coordinate the surprise. I did not know the person whose party this was, but I said, wait, time out. And they're like, who is this guy? But then I saved the day.
How about Charlie, the superhero of birthdays? Are we in agreement that once you get past a certain age, and I guess a certain age would be once you enter the adult workforce, birthdays aren't holidays. Birthdays aren't off days.
Now, I will say, if you've got some awesome thing planned, like that's great, and that could also be planned in like February. If it happens to be on your birthday, I have no problem with that because I'm for people planning awesome things. They're not holidays, but if you want to take it as a time to do something you could also do in February, we'll disagree. That's fine with me.
Yeah, but if you're in your 40s and your birthday's on a Tuesday in the middle of the summer, go to work. By the way, I'm now going to find out your birthday and make it a point every single year to text you on your birthday. No. There's always one coming, Charlie. You've got another 60 left in you. I might only be
Just
around
60,
for another 40.
wow.
Well, come on now. You're going to live to what? Your mid-80s?
140, 150?
So we are now entering 2026, our second calendar year of the gold standard. Yes, a fist pump from Charlie and from myself. Happy New Year, Charlie.
Happy New Year.
I hope it's a great 2026 for everybody. Thanks again for listening to the gold standard here on Fox 19 Now.